All right, welcome everybody. I'm Paul Cambio. I'm with Flower Expo. I do a lot of their legal work. I'm going to be moderating today, and I think we just start with everybody introducing themselves and telling us what they know about the industry.
Hey, Barry Foy here, Gentlemen Smugglers. We're a brand. We're in about 3 states. We came here to Massachusetts about a year and a half ago. We love it en masse. I'm from the South, as you probably can tell. But we did a lot of smuggling here in Massachusetts back in the day, in the 80s, the 70s. So we have a connection here. I love it en masse. People are very friendly. We are with Green Meadows as our partner here in Mass. Great group. Like I said, we're in other states as well. We have a legacy, have a story. We have great product. And I'm going to pass it on to my friend Gene.
Thank you, Barry. I'm Gene McCain. My company is Mello Cannabis. I started in the industry about 5 years ago. I founded a company called Cannabis Provisions, and right in the beginning brought in Meg Sanders and Eric Williams, who were very experienced in Colorado. They came out to Massachusetts, and together we built the company up over a few years, pretty strong level. We then did a friendly internal buyout where about a little less than half the company, including myself, we sold out to Meg and Eric and a group of the existing investors. They carried on with Cannabis Provisions, and I started another company called Mello Cannabis. We started with a store in Haverhill, which we opened about a little bit over 2 years ago. And when I started my first store in Lee, we were the third adult-only store. And we opened the doors and they came. They were, you remember the newspaper stuff, they were lining up around the building. But 2 years later, 100 stores or so had been opened in the state and several in Haverhill. I opened the door at Mello and they didn't come. It was pretty scary, very scary. We were expecting a pretty big push right in the beginning and it wasn't there. So what that meant, and we all realized it, is we just had to go back to business 101. We're cannabis and all the special regulations and wonderful special aspects of being in the cannabis industry, but with a heavy competition, you've got to run a good business. You've got to do proper marketing. You have to be in a good location. You have to have a very strong staff that's very experienced, and your bud tenders have to be able to work really nicely with the customers. You have to have all your systems, your inventory systems, your menu has to be developed correctly for your competition. It's business 101. So we just stuck our heads down and just really worked for the last couple of years. And we've brought the company up. That store is now doing extremely well, very profitable at a time when it's pretty tough. So we don't have any opportunity to slack. Our attitude is every day, every week, we're trying to find innovative ways to provide a better service, a better menu, a friendlier, more comfortable, happier kind of feeling. And the spirit of Mello, just the word Mello, the concept there really came from the reality that there's been a cannabis culture, right, a pot culture over the last 100 years in America, and people were drawn to that. There was the hippie movement, which I was part of many years ago. But today is different. All those people, all of us that were part of the cannabis culture are now coming into the legal culture. But there's a lot of people that weren't part of that. Maybe they smoked a little bit when they were in college or when they were a kid, but it's illegal. They got away from it. But now that it's legal, you have a lot of people coming in for, as new users or coming back to cannabis. And with Mello, I wanted Mello to have an image of friendly, open feeling of anyone of any walk of life could feel really comfortable coming into our store. And at our grand opening, it was fun because Inspector Deck was there of the Wu-Tang Group, and he was saying to me, you know, I really like your logo and your feeling here. It's just really cool. You know, it's got, you know, we all dig it, and yet I can see how everyone would like it. And then a moment later, I've got the Chamber of Commerce, a lady all dressed up in beautiful dress, nicely dressed, and man in coat and tie, looking very proper and everything. And the first thing they said to me, you know, we really like the feeling of this place. Like, we feel welcome here, and we feel really easy and comfortable coming in here. And that sort of summed it up for me, that we were, like, what we were trying to do, we were at least achieving that to some degree. So to me, that feeling of Mello, which I feel coming from so many people in this industry now, is really an important one. It's a legal product that's had a black mark on it for hundreds of years, but it's a 12,000-year-old herb that's been part of mankind since really civilization began. And I think it's wonderful that it's legal now and people are able to enjoy it. It's like every plant is like a medicine box. From recreational use to all kinds of medical use that we're learning more and more. So that's a little introduction to what we're doing at Mello.
I really appreciate to be on this panel with Gene and Barry and Ruben. I know a little about each of you, and I know how dedicated you are to the plant. And I think that what you were just saying, Gene, really connected with me in terms of that it's not just, you know, now we're in the legal market, branding, people are paying attention to that and what it means, but I think it's like, I come from a place that the plant is the teacher, and I think the plant has always brought people together who are very different, because it is something that connects the people. When they use it, they realize its benefits and that it's a friend. And so that's, you know, I came to this as I smoked weed in high school. I got blasted a few times. I stopped. It was too much. Then I have an eye condition that's degenerative and is getting worse. And I hadn't smoked weed in years, but I had a surgery and it went sideways, and there was pain in my eyes and I couldn't work. And a friend suggested weed, and I was like, yeah, right. Like, I can't work doing that. I was directing touring concerts with bands that had demands, and their publicists had demands, and the tech crew had demands. They'd be present every moment. You can't be high and do that stuff. And then I was like, he was like, what about a tincture? And that was the moment I was like, oh yeah, like it's just a plant. And I've been making tinctures for 15 years already from other plants. So I made a cannabis tincture. I was able to just take the right amount. And it gently relieved my pain, my anxiety drifted away, and I was able to get back and do the work that I needed to do, take care of my family. I have a kid. All those things is what I think is is how I came to this. And then for years it was just sharing with other patients. And so one thing that I've seen now, and it's interesting as you talk, because since the beginning I had a label, and it had a wolf on it, and the name Howls. And the reason why the wolf was on it was because of the greatest benefit, not just that pain relief or the anxiety, but it was that I was connecting with my family and friends again. I was connecting with other patients, and it was really about the pack. So there was a wolf on there, but the other part is the name. And I think it's relevant to this because I guess this is OGs, people who've gotten gray hairs while they've been doing this. I certainly have. And I think the thing is that it started, Howl was the name I used, pseudonym, because I was concerned. I didn't want people to know because there was a gray area in the law and all that. But then since it's grown and it's legal and we can be open about it in this way and feel comfortable, it's now Howls without that apostrophe, because it's really the best benefit of this plant medicine and this tincture and being part of all this has been hearing everybody's stories like yours, and not just since it's been legal. I want to hear some of the old school stories, please, because that's people kept this plant alive and available so that we could come together and then build a movement which got it legalized and now available. Also would like to say shout out to wish this panel had some women on it, because I know that while I was doing this, there was a lot of that was a huge part of distribution for patients, and so I just want to also just acknowledge the people who aren't here right now in this panel. We're part of keeping this plant available and accessible, and bring them to the conversation as well. The name Howls now is just about everybody's voice. together like a voice of wolves in a pack howling. So just thank you all for being here, and I hope I get to hear some of your stories over this weekend. Thanks.
That was a beautiful story, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to come close to topping that. And to your point about women behind the scenes and helping things and being very important people in the industry, I do want to take a moment to shout out my wife, Allison Pelletier. She was a big player and provided a lot of support that made my company a reality. Women really do play a very meaningful factor in this industry, and we do need more representation across the board. Thank you for having me here. My name is Ruben Seyde. I'm with Delivered Inc. You mentioned that the panel is about OGs with gray hairs. I may not have too many gray hairs, but I've been smoking for more than half my life at this point. So I've been selling and all that type of stuff. So I think I have a little bit of experience here too. I may not have as much, but a little bit. I grew up in Fitchburg, and being a little brown boy, I always saw myself as having very limited opportunities. I didn't think that I would be able to do much. My parents immigrated here from Mexico when, literally just before I was born. So they gave me a golden ticket, and I didn't know what to do with that. I was very lost throughout high school. I started smoking when I was 13 years old. So that's one thing that's always been very consistent in my life and has always been there for me, and one of the reasons that the plant plays a very special factor for me. A lot of people, it may be a bit young to start smoking then, but I'm really grateful that I was introduced to it because it's meant a lot to me since then. And so I thought I was going nowhere. Somehow I got into Boston University, and I got a pretty good scholarship there. I was kind of figuring stuff out, but I still felt very lost. I still felt like I was going nowhere, and I had no idea what to do. I was selling weed out of my dorm the entire time. I was selling weed throughout high school, just trying to do things to pay the bills and just try to, figure my life out. And then eventually I thankfully graduated college and continued being a pothead that entire time. Got a regular desk job, I was a paralegal for a bit, and then I noticed the social equity program came out. And at first I thought it was a bit of a joke. I didn't think that the Cannabis Control Commission would really be able to do much that would give meaningful impact to little people like me. So I ignored the program for the first couple of months. The application period was open. Then I went ahead and submitted an application. Like the very last day you could submit one, and didn't hear back for months. I finally heard back. I got accepted. Getting accepted into that program literally changed my life. I went to one seminar where we just, met every other social equity participant in that cohort, and it was there where I just made incredible connections that really sparked a fire in me and showed me that even though you're Mexican and you're a pothead and you have all these negative strikes against you, there's still a lot you can do. And that really helped me figure out that, why not start a business? Why not go after it? And I always had a passion or like a desire to get into the business world. I just never really knew how to do it. So I got into the social equity program. I figured, why not use my sales experience from the past combined with, the qualifications for social equity and see what I can do. At first, I had 55 acres tied down of cultivation land. We were going to do an outdoor grow. We got as far as the provisional license, but then COVID came around and the economy shut down and we lost our investors. And that was a very miserable period in my life. I thought I was like, everything I thought was right. I'm not going anywhere. But then I thankfully managed to, I got to give kudos to where it is. So at the time, Lantern/Drizzly, they came out with an incubator program for social equity people to get into the home delivery world. And I saw this ad to apply for the program. I was like, I lost this other opportunity, so last time I applied for something that went well, so why not just throw my name in the hat again? So I applied for that. When I got in it, I was like, well, fuck, now I need to do a home delivery company. My wife and I sat in our living room for days trying to figure out for 2 days, and we came out with the name Delivered Inc. And the company was born in May 2020. It took us from there all the way until July 2023 to finally open. It was a lot of headache of trying to raise capital, trying to go through licensing, permitting, and all that fun stuff. And it was a crash course for me because we didn't hire any attorneys, we didn't hire any consultants. I've literally just like I figured out the black market and how to operate there, I figured why not take the same playbook and do it here. So I just, have studied the fuck out of the laws and regulations and used all of that and asked a lot of questions to people like you guys and got my license. And, I managed to create an incredible team in the process. Somehow we got a real strong attorney on the team now who provides a lot of support. We have like operations team, a marketing team. So to Eugene, right? Is that your name? Yes, to Eugene's point, right now we're still in that very scary phase of we thought once it's here we would be millionaires, but no, it's a lot of work to really make this thing be successful. So we're still in that learning phase of trying to figure out what's working, what's not, and yeah, we're about to have 1 year open, and it's been an incredible year of a lot of learning and a lot of really cool experiences, and I'm really glad to top off the 1 year anniversary by coming back here to the Flower Expo. So pass it back to you.
Thank you. To the OGs over here, did you ever think you would see a day when cannabis would be legal?
Yeah, when Jimmy Carter was president. I hate to date myself and go back that far, but Jimmy was going to legalize weed. And of course, being smugglers, we figured, oh, hell, we're going to get off. It's going to be legal, and we'll switch over into the legal side. But I think Jimmy's son got in a little trouble. He was dabbling with some other things at the White House and got some bad PR from it. And Jimmy said he X'd that out. It's not going to work in a political world at that time because he had some bad press about his son. So that's the only time I ever thought it was going to be legal, really until California and Colorado came down the pike. But that was my hopes that it would have been done back then. And Jimmy might have been able to do it, maybe, but maybe you remember some times that.
No, it's basically through my life, starting in the 60s, as cannabis became popular amongst the counterculture. I was part of that. And it was in the beginning, like when I was in my late teens, it wasn't that big of a deal. It wasn't until Nixon, the war on drugs, it really got heavy. And they were all about arresting people and throwing them in jail for a long time. And it really changed then. And really from that point for the next 30, 40 years, I mean, I would check out NORML, what they're doing, and there were people making efforts, but the public opinion was below 50% on wanting legalization because there was such a huge effort by the government to make it out to be this reefer madness, the evil drug, and it's wonderful to see what's happening now because, like, as I mentioned before, the recent DNA research, it goes back 12,000 years. The plant, they can trace it back like 20 million years or something on the planet, but the domestication of cannabis was in China and Southeast Asia about 12,000 years ago. And you think about it, we've been using, and that's about when Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, the first really megalithic structures in the civilization of man began developing, and agriculture, and cannabis was right there with it. So it's kind of crazy to think about 12,000 years of our using this as a medicine, rope. You all know all this. It's clothing, shoes, sails, rope, everything, shelter, tents, and medicine. It's just huge, all for 12,000 years. And then also in the last 100 years, it's like it's this reefer. It's been a terrible thing. But I just sort of didn't know. There was always a hope that it would eventually common sense would come through. And it ultimately was, as we all know, it was the medical aspect of it. It was that, Charlotte's Web, that little girl. And when you see this little girl, what she was going through with 20, epileptic fits a day or more, and getting it down to like 1 or 2 and actually having a life, that to me kind of was the turning point. And I know that Sanjay Gupta, the doctor on CNN, had a big documentary negative on cannabis, no way, it's terrible. Then about 2 years later, big CNN documentary, Sanjay Gupta, actually it has medical use. It's a good thing. And that sort of opened the door. And then I kind of saw it looked like it was going to move towards what we have now. And to me, I'm just grateful. I think it's wonderful that we're in this industry and it's legal now, and get 283 knocked out. Eventually it'll be descheduled. But just getting 280, just rescheduling is a huge move. So I had my doubts, but I'm really happy where we are now.
Yeah, I guess I thought it was legal. I thought it was going to be legal from the moment I first smoked it. I was like, come on, why is it? And it didn't make sense. I mean, it made sense. But I was in high school, and I think that was a moment of realization that it would, that like, I think a lot of people have experienced that they were lied to about what this whole situation was. So then I think that anytime you recognize that something is, there is something flawed or wrong being taught you and by the government, by society, that's impacting your life negatively, you start to recognize how the systems how the systems we live in, and you start to understand why it's illegal. It's definitely not because of the plant. And then, so I think I think I always thought it would be legal. And then as I became more sophisticated to understand how the world works, I didn't think it would be legal. I did have the fortune of, I went to high school in the Bay Area, and so that was really where I did start to see, that was the first medical program in America, and law was in California, and it was because of the Green Cross and how cannabis was just benefiting people with HIV and AIDS and that whole crisis, and so you could see why it would become legal, because people were, their health was entirely. They benefited so much, and that the community in California rallied around and made it legal medically. I think what's really interesting is how since the more legalization happened, I think so many people support legalization because of their thinking that this is a plant, and they think the flower is going to be smoked, and maybe they'll make a tincture or some hash, the way people have been doing it for 5,000, 12,000 years. I think what's interesting now is that with legalization comes in a different approach to the plant, and as a thing to extract out individual molecules to make pharmaceuticals or formulations that can be patented and sold and that kind of thing. And I think that there is, with legalization, I think it's interesting to see how the system continues to impact like our perception of this plant. So I have always thought it would be legal, but I think that in time I'm just seeing that it's better, that there's, that whenever you have a relationship with this plant, you start to learn that the laws really dictate your perception of it. So it may be legal, but also then the systems that we use to distribute it become something you recognize as impacting it. So we have rules now that are different than before, but I'm still waiting to sort of see the plant be free from all of these other systems, and I think that that's what we in the industry and educating people can really share, what that the source of the cannabis they're getting, whether they're getting it as a pill or a vape pen, or they're just told, just focus on those things. The more you can share that it's a plant and all that it has to offer, I think the better these systems will be. So I went a little sideways. Thank you for your indulgence, but has it been legal for you?
Yeah, that's fine. So do you guys... You didn't have anything to add. So do you think science and medical research is a way to expand the product to the general public and to other states? You think that's critical at all?
Yeah, absolutely, because in the end, that's what cannabis is about, helping people. We're way behind on research because there was no grant money until just recently to be able to do research. The universities and colleges usually are the ones that are involved with deep research in the medical side, breaking down the plant. What are all the benefits that we can get from cannabis? I think we're just on the cutting edge of that now. I think probably the panel would agree with me that in the coming years that we're going to find out that cannabis is much more valuable in so many ways than just, from a recreational standpoint. Of course, medical's been around for a while, and the plant was used for that for the many, many years that Gene was talking about, the thousands of years that it's been around for purposes of medical use. So I think we're on the cutting edge, and I think it's very important that we move forward with that in mind when we approach cannabis and how we perceive it and what it can do for us. And so hopefully the government will continue to allow that, and these things like we were talking about being rescheduled, some of the other things that are slowly happening in Washington that'll propel it into where it can be a major research project for many colleges and universities. And I think at that time we'll just begin to see what the results and how it can really help us in so many ways. And so I'm sure Gene's got something to add to that.
Thanks, Barry. Well, as Barry was saying, the research was really just shut down. There were no funds available. No universities could fund research. Any company using federal funds couldn't. It's basically an illegal drug, So it has really transformed in the last 10, 15 years, and there is massive research going on all over the world right now, and some really remarkable studies are coming out. I see the plant is like, I'd like to think of it as a medicine chest, and there's all kinds of medicines in this little plant. And we know some of it. Obviously CBD has become very well known for some of its properties that are helping many people. But there's so much more in the plant, and it's being done, and the research is happening now in a big way, and it is really important. And I think we're just going to find over the decades more and more is going to come out. It is a magical herb. This is a very special plant. It's with mankind since we started civilization. It's a crazy plant. It's got so many unique properties to it. And I just think there's just an enormous amount of value in the plant that we're just picking away at right now. Are we going to talk about THC? Is that a question coming up? That's the next round. Again, I won't go into that. A lot of research being done on the enormous number of biochemicals in the plant. We know there's the cannabinoids, but there's hundreds of them. We know there's terpenes. There's perhaps thousands of them. Esters, alkaloids. There's so many biochemicals in this plant that they're just beginning to do the research on. But I think it's going to be wonderful to watch all that comes out in this research.
So one example of research that just came out, or a piece of research that just came out, is that there was a study that came out last week that was federally funded, showing how when you inject terpenes to treat pain in your body, it can have the same effect as morphine without all the negative effects of the addictive qualities and all that stuff. So to your point, we are just getting into the surface of the real benefits that cannabis brings besides just getting high and the initial medicinal relief we found. There's so much more to be found in the coming years, and it's very exciting to be at the front of that.
Yeah, there's been a lot of research, just not in America, and so I spent a lot of time looking at research as I developed along this path. And one part, I think that there is going to be so much more, but what's been done so far, I saw this 5-university study in Israel, and it was really the difference between a whole plant preparation, a sort of traditional way people consume cannabis, and the isolation of CBD or other molecules and using that alone. And so in almost every study I've seen that's analogous to that, it really supports the idea that when you get reports back from patients, having a whole plant preparation that has all of the things that you're talking about in there, not isolating one or the other, that provides the most benefit. Now, there's obviously sometimes very specific effects that you can get for specific types of conditions. But one thing I'd love to see the research continue to do is to compare so that we all know, because you can just go into a dispensary and get get the plant, but getting more and more as they make more medicines. I guess I'm always looking to compare and see the research, and I hope they do more of it using the whole plant preparations versus sort of isolating things, because that's something that we can all make ourselves too. And I do think that I'd love to see research that continues to empower people to use this as medicine in their homes and in their lives, as well as becoming, pharmaceuticals that can really, really powerful for people as well. So yeah, I think that there's going to be a ton of research, and I'm just advocating to continue that work. Because that's the research I think has been happening for 12,000 years by humans already. Does this work? Yeah. Let's use more of that.
And since you touched on it a little bit, Eugene, I believe you're concerned about the THC levels in cannabis and how that's sort of driving the price and the industry.
This is my favorite topic. All the people that work at Mello have listened to me talk about this so many times. But let me first start by saying THC is really cool. It's a magical molecule. Like, we all know that. It's a wonderful thing. When I was a kid, we called it mind expanding. And there's a lot of different ways of describing the psychotropic effect of THC. And that is certainly a key ingredient that draws us to this flower and for recreational use. But it's not the whole thing. And a little bit, as you were just describing, the full flower effect is really, really important. And I think we have a challenge now in our industry as we've moved from the black market to the legal market. In the black market, when you went down to the corner to see your friend, the drug dealer, and had a couple bags of weed with them, what would you do? You'd look at it, right? How does it look? And you get a feel for it if you've been smoking a lot. If it looks really ratty, you're probably, but nice structured buds, and whoa, this looks pretty good. Then what's the next thing you do? You check out its nose. And if the nose is good, you're buying that one. You smell both of them, you pick which one you want. Now, that's not just a sort of a fun little anecdotal story. There's some real meaning there. Our olfactory senses pick up things that go right into our central nerve system, and we pick up on something special going on in whether it's food or whether it's marijuana. A study was done about a little over a year ago by Dr. Ethan Rousseau and some of his compatriots that I think is a game changer, but not everyone has seen it or heard about this study. But it was a study done by scientists, 64 patients, 14 strains from like 12% to 30% THC from dispensaries. First, the scientists retested all of it and found out that it was all mixed up, all the testing. It's all numbers. We're still from 15 to 30%, but it was what was stated by the dispensaries from the labs was quite inaccurate. Just a problem we've all been dealing with and the labs are trying to get better at. But these 14 strains, the 64 test subjects were allowed to look at and smell it. They don't know which one it is, and they would mark down and grade it based on its aroma. And then they smoked these 14 strains over a month. At the end of the month, as they were going through, and by the time of the month ending, they had for each strain, they would mark down how much they enjoyed the high, the experience of it. There was no correlation between the percent of THC and if the people enjoyed it, how they graded the high. No correlation. But the aroma, the ones they picked that they liked the aroma, it almost perfectly matched with the ones that they enjoyed the high. Now that's a very powerful study, and it's the truth. And I think most of you here have experienced that yourself. You'll find a flower that's a low THC, but you just love it. It gives you a beautiful experience. And part of this is really breaking down what is getting high, what's going on. To me, it's kind of broken. There's sort of two basic things. It's a lot more complicated than that. But there's the psychotropic, the mind expansion, which is a sort of your ego gets a detached, gets a different perspective. You're seeing yourself. There's many ways of describing this. But that experience can also be uncomfortable. And we know it can get people paranoid. You know, as the consciousness moves into a different perspective, the amygdala, the basic primal function of the body feels out of control, fight or flight. You feel like you can't fight or flight. And you can get very scared. You feel detached, disconnected, out of control. So how did our forefathers, how did our ancestors deal with that reality? Well, they developed these landrace strains that are frickin' awesome. When I was a kid, marijuana was 4 to 6% THC. But we got stoned. We didn't not get stoned then, and now we get stoned. We got completely stoned then. But you wouldn't get it, you wouldn't have a rapid onset. You wouldn't get in 1 or 2 minutes, you wouldn't get into this mind expansion and this abrupt jolt into a different state of consciousness. It would take about 15 or 20 minutes, and we used to joke, is it oregano or not? You don't know right away. You gotta wait about 15, 20 minutes, and then you start getting high. Okay, well, this is good weed. But today, with our 25, 30%, and really, from the scientists I talk to, there's no such thing as more than 30%, 31%, 29%, 1/3. You take a bud, is 1/3 of that pure THC distilled oil? There's not more than that according to the scientists. So if you're getting a 30% THC, that's sort of you're maxing out on that. And what that does, what my experience, scientists I talk to, people I talk to, is you get this rapid onset. And that's what can cause the discomfort or even paranoia. Whereas when with these landrace strains, and a lot of the good strains develop now that are really the full flower effect of all the terpenes and other cannabinoids and other biochemicals, what do you get? The second part of getting high, or the other side of that, is the body high. Now, when I was a kid, what you'd say to your friend, you'd say, "Did you get a buzz yet?" And what we're talking about is you're feeling like a vibration all over your body, and it's like a really nice feeling, and then it goes in the body and goes in the head. Not the psychotropic in the head, but just you can feel the buzz in your head. You can feel the buzz through your body. That is the product of a lot of biochemicals that we don't fully understand. But if you want to experiment yourself, take a vape pen that's distillate, pure, not live rosin, but pure, just a fully distillate THC. Try that, and you'll get the THC effect for sure, and you'll get it right away. And if you're not a frequent user, you might get uncomfortable. And you'll feel the THC will give a little bit of a body high, a little bit, but not much. Then if you then you smoke a flower. I don't care if it's 12%, 10% THC, but if it's a really high quality, well-developed flower with all its biochemicals fully developed in it, you're gonna get a beautiful rush of a body high, and feel really great. We've got so many stories that I know of people that, and I'll just take in our own, we have a grow, Mello Farms in Amesbury. And my son, Tyler, who's been growing, I didn't realize this until recently, since he was 15. But at any rate, he's been growing all his life in California and in Hawaii. And he's kind of a master at it, as a lot of great growers are here in Massachusetts. And we've been pheno hunting, really serious pheno hunting over the last year and a half, going through hundreds, thousands of plants and selecting the best strains out of them. And we've got one strain, which is Purple Panther, and it's like 18% THC. And I've had some stores say, we don't buy anything under 20. Like, okay, good for you. The Purple Panther, my team watched it grow in each harvest, watched it grow, smelled it, looked at it. I want to smoke this stuff as soon as we harvest it. And it's beautiful, and it gives this great body high, body head high, and then it's 14%, 18%, 21%, depending on the different harvests we've done, but get fully stoned from it, but you don't get that rapid onset of the THC that creates that awkwardness. I've been smoking all my life. I've had periods of time where I got off it for 5 years or more, but you know, I'm pretty comfortable with smoking it. But if I take out a 30% pre-roll and smoke it, I can get a little bit uncomfortable. And in our industry now, we've got so many people just coming back into it or just starting in it. And they're going to stores and they want the best quality. Shouldn't they ask for the best quality? Of course they should. So what are they given? They're given a 30% THC. They go home, smoke that, and get extremely uncomfortable. And that's why I don't want to smoke pot anymore. It's a disservice to the consumers in general to make them believe that high quality must be high THC. And that's the basic message I want to share, is that there's really, really high quality THC at 12, 14, 16, 18%. Now, I agree that if someone's growing something, getting it at 25, 28, 30%, they're probably doing a pretty good job. You know, and it may be very good flower, but there's really high quality flower at lower THC that's much better for many of our customers and many of our friends and many of our family members. And I believe this is a challenge. The biggest challenge in our industry right now is helping the consumers understand that they can have a great experience with a lower THC testing flower and enjoy it more. You know, at the Vietnam War, Thai stick, the soldiers were coming over to Thailand and they fell in love with Thai stick. Thai stick was about 11, 12% THC. But which was fairly high at that time because the Mexican ragweed, we used to call it, was like 4 to 6%. So it was fairly high, but robust body high. Now, I can't imagine these soldiers coming over to Thailand and getting a 30% THC reefer and blowing their heads open, you know, existential questions going on, coming right out of that war. It would have been horrible. That's not what they fell in love with. They didn't fall in love with high THC. They fell in love with like a sunshine body high, if you can get that image, where you're just glowing. That's Thai stick. That's Hangarok, squirrel tail from Thailand. And it's low THC, and it's a beautiful experience. Our Purple Panther is. I know so many stories of low THC that people have had a wonderful experience with. And it's really important for us as an industry to help, and our bud tenders and try it themselves. Don't believe me, don't believe anyone. Try the different levels of THC. Try some high quality flower that's low THC and see how much you enjoy it and be able to share that with your customers so that the customers, the patients, the consumers that are growing and growing in America and all over the world now start realizing that there's great marijuana that is not that high in THC, but very high in other biochemicals that create a beautiful high experience.
I don't think I can add to that. You really laid it out, and I agree. I think that all of us who are sort of have experienced the plant, I think that resonates for me, and I think with a lot of people. I'm curious for if you don't mind me asking a question, and I know both of you worked in sort of legacy roles, distribution and selling. Like, how has it changed? What's the difference now that you're seeing in terms of how customers respond to the plant when you're delivering it? Because my understanding is you delivered before. Yeah. So yeah, how you're seeing that now in the legal market. There's testing, it's measured. But what did you see when you were dropping off weed before versus now in terms of response?
Yeah, no, for me, it's basically the same exact experience as before. The only difference is that I have to wear body cameras and do other compliant things to be compliant with the regulations. But one thing that I love about the license we have, the home delivery license, is that we're literally, taking it back to old school days, and we bring it straight to your door. You're just hanging out, already smoking a joint, drinking a couple beers, having a barbecue, doing whatever you're doing, living your life, and next thing you know, the weed man shows up, and it's always 90% of the time, it's like a very happy reaction, very excited. There is a couple people from the older generation that they get very timid, and they immediately make us come inside and kind of like hide us from the general community. And like when that happens, it's really cute, and then like we try to be like like we help them out as much as we can. And because of that, like we did make all of our delivery packaging very discreet. No one ever knows what we're delivering, so we really try to give them that discreet experience for people that want it, but most people are just, I think we get a bit different customers from a typical dispensary because we get a lot of OGs that are used to buying whole ounces at a time, or really, spending a couple $100s on concentrates. And we had one guy come in and buy $500 worth of, I think that he just left, but worth of Packwoods, and that's literally just 2-gram joints. And it's insane that people are willing to spend that much money, but our customers really love weed, and they're like really open and honest about it. And yeah, so that's been my experience with our customers. Very similar to the black market.
I want some of that Purple Panther.
We're just about out of time, and I just wanted to see if Barry had something you wanted to add about maybe what's cutting edge in the industry or anything maybe we haven't touched on that you'd like to talk about.
Well, I think Gene was kind of hitting on something that I believe is going to be like the wave of the future, that it's going to go beyond just wanting to, how high can I get? More along the lines of how good can I feel? And so I think that's going to be on the cutting edge. That's what people are going to eventually look for through education, through bud tenders, through dispensary owners, through growers here in Mass and across the country. I think it's gradually going to turn to what can it do for my body? What can it do to make me feel better from a standpoint of medically and psychologically, and not so much just I want to get couch locked. I don't want to talk to anybody. I'm just going to smoke this 30%er and then bye-bye. No, I think it's more than, like, I know back in the day, and I'm, again, aging myself, but when we'd sit around and smoke, it would be a lot about conversation. Right. And a lot of, like, laughter and feeling good and being able to communicate and not be, getting so high that I'm into my own little world and I don't really want to talk to anybody. It might feel okay, but I think it's more of that a lower THC can lend itself to more of a sociable, outcome or party or hanging out with your friends. So, and also feeling good if you have a medical situation going on. So yeah, we're on the cutting edge, and through education, I think we're going to get somewhere like Gene's Purple Panther.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I guess if you don't mind, I just wanted to jump on that with the cutting edge. Sorry. Yeah. Well, your stories inspire me in that way. That I think that the cutting edge always seems to be, driven by the culture of people using the plant, and then research follows that, doctors follow that, medicine follows that. And so I think a big thing is just to continue to sort of empower yourself to know that what you feel is real. So if it's working for you, we each have different systems. That's what science tells us. We all have different endocannabinoid systems, which needs a different spectrum of different cannabinoids to create different effects on your body, and it's unique. So I think a lot of it, the cutting edge is also about, is a cultural growth into trusting your own body, because that's something we're not taught a lot, but that's something that cannabis can teach. And that, it was because of your experiences that you're like, this research needs to be done. We need to tell everybody this. So I just encourage everyone along the path to just listen to your own body when you're using it, and then advocate for more people to do that. And then I think we'll get the cutting edge research, because people out there doing that are the ones who discover how it works the best. And then the doctors come in and affirm it. So that's why I guess I wanted to add that. Trust yourself.
Thank you. Well, we had a very great panel here with all a unique passion for cannabis. And I want to thank them all for talking to us today, and for you all for attending and listening.